Welcome to Friend or Foe, the CFO's relationship with AI, brought to you by the Controllers Council. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council, and before I introduce our expert panelists and sponsor, I have some brief housekeeping items. First, we'll have a live Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please, attendees, please go to Webinar Control Panel to ask questions at any time. We'll get to as many questions as possible in the hour. Second, this webinar does offer CPE credit, so we'll have 3 polling questions. Again, please use the GoToWebinar control panel to answer polls, and if not going for CPE, to benchmark your peers. There will also be a short survey after the webinar for CPE. Next, and finally, you'll receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours. So no need for notes or screenshots. So with that, I'd like to introduce our partner, Yooz, cloud-based procure-to-pay or P2P automation, infusing intelligence into the accounts payable process. For more information, visit getyooz.com. With that, allow me to introduce our expert panelists. Jay Deubler is Chief Revenue Officer at Yooz and has spent his career in accounting software at brands such as Avalara, Sage, and Infor. Rhonda Sauer is Manager of CAAS, Client Accounting as a Service Solutions at UHY Advisors, which is also a CPA firm. And Brian Bentley is a corporate finance consultant at AcctZen. He is a CPA and a former controller. So welcome, panelists. And before we dive into our panel discussion, Jay, would you please tell us a little bit about Yooz?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody, and I'm excited to be here with you today. And before we jump into our discussion, I just wanted to give you a little background on Yooz. Yooz was created in 2010, and we give our customers a fully automated AP tool that's flexible to fit companies of any size. It's easy to implement and scalable as you grow. As an all-in-one solution, we use AI to eliminate a lot of the manual processes that your AP departments face. Thanks to the cloud, you can access and share data in real time, anywhere, and give you insights to your cash flow. Yooz product is fully customizable with workflows, and we're tailored to meet the needs of your business throughout the entire AR and AP automation solution. Neil, I'm going to pass this back to you to introduce the other speakers before we get started.
Okay, well, yeah, I was just going to give a little background about our topic, AI. Obviously, it's a red hot topic. So some context, as we know, the Office of the CFO and the controllership is challenged with staff and skill shortages. Even though the Great Resignation might be over and unemployment just recently, it was reported at record lows, accounting and corporate finance shortages persist and will likely worsen. The pandemic created remote work and hybrid work environments of on-site and remote, and new acronyms like RTO or return to office. With this backdrop, the traditional roles and responsibilities of CFOs and controllers, traditional roles of financial reporting, budgeting, planning, and some talent management have evolved to incremental roles in HR, much more HR, I'm told. Technology management, possibly managing IT for smaller firms, and more. So with that, I'd like to start out with our first polling question and get our attendees' perspective on: have your roles and or responsibilities changed during and after the pandemic? So please select one of the following. And again, if you're not going for CPE, I think it'll be interesting for you to still participate so you can benchmark your peers. So we're going to give you just a few seconds to answer. And then it turns out this is leading into our first panelist question of the same. So our panelists will be talking about changing roles. So we're almost there in voting. So I'm going to close it out and share the results. Yes, roles have changed dramatically during and after, 21%. No roles and responsibilities have not changed yet, tied for the highest percentage, 33%, with the last. Yes, roles have changed during and after and will continue to change. So the least answer was yes, roles changed during the pandemic. So anyways, that will lead into our first panel question, which is, what is your perspective, panelists, on how CFOs, controllers, and their staffs have changed, how their roles have changed during and after the pandemic? Rhonda, do you want to start?
Sure. I would say, although it's something that CFOs and controllers do regularly, the preserve cash, ensuring companies stayed afloat, is probably one of the biggest items that we saw, mainly with all of the uncertainty that was going on during COVID, whether or not you were even going to have a customer that could come to your office or come visit a restaurant. I mean, most businesses were looking at cash flow. That would be the key issue.
I agree. Brian, how about you?
I think cash flow, I think training is another thing that's really changed a lot. And kind of the pandemic and everybody working remote has really highlighted, who's more efficient as a manager, who's a little bit more hands-on, because it's a lot harder, especially when everybody's remote, to be able to manage everybody and be hands-on directly all the time. Bringing on new employees, training new employees who you may never get to meet in person is a lot more challenging than doing it in person.
Jay, how about your perspective?
My perspective would be a hybrid here of where both Rhonda and Brian were. Cash flow continues to always be forefront on every accounting professional's mind. But more importantly, we also see that technology is changing. We're seeing all the SaaS solutions becoming so much more prevalent, and we're seeing the workforce change. And so in some of the studies and some of the conversations we're having, we're seeing more accounting professionals, controllers, and CFOs being concerned about leadership and solving the problem of the dynamic and changing workforce more than anything else. And seeing the fact of how do we automate some of the roles that are out there, because talent is in such a shortage that the fear is if I lose somebody, getting them back or finding replacements not only cost me more money, but they're going to be really hard to find. So we're seeing a lot of concern on the talent pool in our conversations with CFOs and controllers.
And I think that's a nice segue into our second panel question. What are your observations regarding accounting talent shortages? Brian, why don't you take the first?
Yeah, so it's been my experience that, again, it kind of comes into that training aspect, where if you are working remotely, it's harder to get that face-to-face feedback. And even once you get the face-to-face feedback, or if you can meet and train in person, just kind of those regular reviews, I think it's important that, to me anyway, I know this kind of touches on some stuff we're going to discuss later, but like a hybrid environment is a little bit more efficient for teams to be able to get that face-to-face feedback. At least I know with my style, I prefer that face-to-face or at least a video call, but even those aren't quite as the same thing, So I definitely that's been my observation.
Rhonda, how about yourself?
So because I've been working remotely since 2010, for me, things really didn't change, other than the fact that the people I was working with were now remote. And so it was nice to be able to see the change in business where it was really allowing for people to work from home or hybrid. And I was an independent consultant when I started working remotely by myself. Going back to a company when I joined UHY 3 years ago, I will say that hybrid would be my choice if the office was in Atlanta here for me, because I do think there's a lot to be said for really interacting with people in the office. And I have employees in Michigan that I see maybe quarterly. It might be nice to see them a little more often.
Jay, how about you? What do you think of the shortage? Where's the shortage coming from?
And the shortage that we're seeing is just coming from the changing this workplace 3.0 that a number of HR professionals are talking about. You know, we're seeing that employee engagement is changing, and as tools are needing to help come up and cover where we're not able to find talent. And I think what we've seen during the pandemic is we've seen an acceleration in technology that's been able to augment, you know, the accounting world. I think a lot of us are accountants by trade, including myself. And if we always go back to our early accounting classes, this hasn't changed a lot of things since the 1400s, when this goes back to Mesopotamia and credits and debits were created, and we're still talking the same way. And you know, it's as the tools are catching up now to allow for the changing dynamics. But I think Rhonda brought up a really good point in this hybrid. As a leader of an organization, watching teams come together have so much value. So, you know, we're finding the tools and the ways to do it, but the hybrid workforce, I think we're going to see much more of that, because, you know, as people, we need that interaction, and we need our tribe. And a lot of us spend a lot of time here at work, and this becomes our tribe and who we identify with. You know, I wear pink almost every day now because that's a used color. You know, I spent almost 1,600 days in orange when I was at Avalara. I mean, it's a tribe color. So we're seeing that tribe mentality, you know, continue on to this day. And I think that as we are getting our ability to get a balance back into the workplace, that's what we're going to see. And it's great to see all of the tools, just from, you know, the core accounting to tools like ours, just really allow for that hybrid workspace, and to really cover that added the added ability for greater efficiency, and to be able to do more with less.
Got it. Well, that